So, hi everyone, thank you for joining us today. Please welcome our guests, Daniel, Mary, and Alex. So let me introduce you first. Daniel Callaghan is a CEO at Veremark, a global player in the pre-employment screening and credential management market. He's an expert in HR tech and the future of work, having previously led digital innovation and investment across APAC for the world's largest recruitment company, and is also managing partner of the Workplace Accelerator, a program dedicated to help early-stage HR tech ventures scale. He also founded Europe's earliest high-end freelance marketplace for independent consultants and built it into a global on-demand talent platform. So thank you, Daniel, for being here today.
Thank you for having me. Lovely to be here.
So Mary Glowacka. Mary's 10-year expertise lies across a wide range of people processes with a key focus on learning, leadership, and talent development, as well as best practices in HR system and processes. Mary has drove change management and development initiatives across a wide range of industry and company sizes. She has led roles at EY, Bank of America, and Relx. And now last year, since a few months, she's here in Barcelona as she has joined Preply, a rapid growing technology scale-up. And she's now leading their Center of People Excellence. So thank you for being here, Mary.
Thank you for having me. Great pleasure.
And Alex Coryette, he is co-founder of Outvise, the largest online talent marketplace for digital and TMT freelance experts, providing access to a pool of over 33,000 independent professionals to medium and large size companies in more than 35 markets. Through his leadership role at Outvise, Alex has developed a clear view and strong expertise on how talent on demand marketplaces are transforming, how companies are engaging, attracting, and retaining talent to become more agile and efficient. Before founding Outvise, Alex has worked as a management consultant in companies such as McKinsey, Oliver Wyman, and Accenture. So thank you, Alex. Now let's start this panel discussion around screening and on-demand talent platforms to find out what's happening in the market, why it's happening, and what's coming up in the next years. So Daniel, could you please tell us a bit more about what Verimark does and how this type of tools can help professionals when hiring?
Sure. So Verimark is a global pre-employment screening platform. What that essentially means is that we help companies add simplicity and confidence to their hiring process by checking the claims and credentials of their prospective employees or independent consultants. That is to say, we will check whether the professional has worked at McKinsey, where they've said they've worked, whether they have graduated from the university where they've graduated, whether they have a criminal record or such. All those things that you really need to be completely confident that the
Right.
claims match the reality. And we do that across the world, but through a highly digitized, efficient, and automated process that ultimately just makes it a lot easier and faster for you to still get confidence, but not have the process delayed too much.
Yeah, great. So Alex, please introduce us to Outvise and why are companies relying on on-demand talent?
Yeah, sure. So Outvise is mainly a digital talent marketplace for freelancers or for talents on demand. So what does this mean? It means that on one side, as a marketplace, we have two sides. So on one side, we do have independent professionals, people that have decided not to work as a permanent employee in a company, but to work as a freelancer or as talent on demand. And on the other side, we do have companies which are looking for this type of talent, for the agility, which allows to have this type of contingent workforce. As at Outvise, we are kind of different animal compared to other talent marketplaces out there, because we are very much focused on what we call high-skilled freelancers, and on what we also call technology-driven markets. So at the end, we are placing people that are able to have a strong impact in our clients in companies which are very related to technology. So typically it could be a telecom operator, a media company, or a technology company, or whatever type of company which is in a digital transformation process. Currently, we do have more than 33,000 professionals in the network. Those professionals are coming from 140 countries. Having said that, we are very much focused on Europe, Middle East, and Africa. And this is the talent side. And on the client side, we do serve something like 35 markets, a little bit more. Yeah? And here from mid-sized companies traditionally to large corporations. So our clients are mainly using us for three types of specific needs. First, to fill some specific skill gaps. So they are missing someone who is very knowledgeable about a specific skill. They come to us, we provide him. And a second reason is to accelerate key projects. So there are projects that are lagging behind targets, so they bring additional resources to ensure they accelerate the project. And finally, also for interim positions, so to cover some positions that are not permanent, but which are interim type of positions. And the second part of your question, you were asking what companies are relying on talent on demand. Yeah, so I could be speaking about that for ages, but
yeah.
to make it concise, I mean, there is two main sides for it. Yeah? I mean, the answer has two main components. On one side, you have companies that want to be more and more agile. And for being agile, they are organizing themselves around projects instead of the typical hierarchical organizations. So based on projects. And on the other side, there's a massive migration for people that used to work as employees moving to the freelance world. So more and more, there's a scarcity or there's an issue when trying to find people to join companies. And companies want to be more agile. So when you add these two things together, you come to the notion of on-demand talent or contingent workforce.
Okay, thank you for introducing us to Outvise. Okay, and Mary, as an HR leader, what is your view on these new tools?
Well, just listening to what Alex was saying, this is the reality that the world is in right now. If you just look, for instance, for an example, the latest data that was released by, I believe, the National Statistics Bureau in the US, on average, every month, 4 million workers leave their jobs in the US without necessarily having an alternative employment. And a lot of these people will move into the freelance space as well. So this is very much the reality. Yes, gig workers are not a new concept, but we know that the pandemic has significantly accelerated the appetite from people to go into the freelance space, but also for companies the need to attract such employees as well. And it's extremely important for me. One of the most important things is how important it is to also onboard these people very quickly into the organization, because it is very important that, contingent or not, to Alex's point, companies procure capabilities rather than people to focus on one particular task. And it's extremely important that those people are integrated into the company as quickly as possible. And I think tools like Outvise can also help with reducing a lot of the effort that is needed from internal teams, from internal talent acquisition teams, into not only accelerating the onboarding of these gig workers, but also release them to focus on other things in organizations. So definitely see a very big field for this.
Yes, Right. Thank you, Mary. Now let's see among the audience how many of you are familiar with these new tools to acquire talent. So for that, we've prepared a poll. So we'll leave 1 to 2 minutes for you to answer if yes, you are familiar, if no, or if you are considering. And then we'll share the results with you. Okay, here's it on the screen. So we are asking, are you familiar with background screening platforms? Yes, no, considering. Are you familiar with talent marketplaces? Yes, no, considering. Okay, let's give a few more seconds. Okay, so let's see the results. Oh, I see there are a few people already familiar with this type of platforms. So now it's time to bring to the table some of the most frequent questions and challenges everyone in need of hiring faces today, no matter if HR or heads of department. So let's start with some questions for our guests, but we will keep the chat open. So feel free to leave your comment on the chat area. Yeah, as you see here, we will be talking about how the gig economy is reshaping the HR strategy, how talent marketplaces will continue to innovate after the COVID. Mary, how does an inclusive contingent worker strategy look like? What are the main challenges in the on-demand talent marketplace? Why is skill-based recruitment becoming so important? And also the main reasons for company using talent marketplaces. So let's start with the first one. How is the gig economy reshaping HR strategy? And I think, Daniel, do you want to take that one?
There's also a very interesting question that's been posted in the chat section by Sonia as well. So I'll certainly, where she asks if we can talk about accelerating employer value propositions, talent branding, pre-onboarding programs, and such. So I'll try and highlight any relevance there. But obviously, if anyone else have questions, I would encourage them to put them in the Q&A session as well.
Yeah.
To the more immediate question around how is HR strategy being reshaped by the gig economy. I don't think HR strategy is being reshaped directly by the HR strategy, but it is a fantastic additional tool for HR strategy to have in its arsenal. Right? If people are, if the purpose of HR is to build a team and help the organization build a team and culture that drives productivity, then the ability to really leverage on the gig marketplace or the gig talent pool is really a fantastic one, right? The ability to bring on spot talent to instantly deliver skills that you need only for certain pieces, the efficiency that brings from either a cost base or the flexibility and being able to avoid sort of permanent hiring budgets, the bringing on talent that otherwise might not be interested, because there has been this seismic shift in both young professionals and more seasoned professionals all now going independent. And therefore, if you don't, as an organization, start to think about how you can leverage this talent network then, or this talent pool, then you're already increasingly cutting yourself out of 25-30% of the talent. And actually that's obviously the complete opposite of what any HR forward-thinking HR organization would really want to do. So and we can see all the trends that actually now, because it is irreversible in its fact that it is going to continue to grow and become more this. People are having to take this consideration, like how do you onboard someone who's not really coming on board, right? How do you make a contingent worker feel like a member of the team, even though legally they're not a member of the team? Or how do you build an employer brand proposition that obviously is designed specifically to that specific hiring audience? And these are definitely opening up all new challenges and new areas of opportunities for HR. But I mean, I think still largely just forms one part of the overall HR strategy, but certainly one that is going to be driving the talent acquisition thinking for the decades to come.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, you've just mentioned how to build an inclusive contingent workers strategy. So, Mary, how would you do that?
Well, to me, it all starts with the mindset to begin with, because if you go into building such a strategy with a philosophy that a contingent worker is of any less value than a full-time employee, then that's going to be a bit of a problem at the start. I very much believe that we're bringing in not only skills, but we're bringing in people, and it's extremely important that we help them integrate into the company as quickly as possible. To Daniel's point, from a inclusion and belonging perspective, but also to enable them to be able to be productive as quickly as possible. And oftentimes, I mean, I've heard this argument before in many previous companies, that somehow there should be a separation day to day between the full-time employee and the contingent employee. I'm of a very different philosophy, because in the end of the day, we are welcoming these skills and these people into our company. We also welcome them to our culture. How we operate as an organization is what we will expect from a contingent worker to assimilate with the culture very quickly, even if they're here just for a month or a couple of months. We provide them with access to many of our systems. So we also need them, for example, to think about if our culture is, I don't know, if you're in the banking sector, huge focus on risk mitigation every day, and you provide people with access to certain tools and applications, whether they are a full-time employee or a contingent worker, we do expect as an organization for them to have that same mindset. And day to day on the ground, we don't see the contract that someone has, right? We are engaging with a new colleague on the team and someone who we need to work with together towards a common goal. So from that perspective, to me, it's irrelevant what type of contract someone has. So there is no simple answer. I do really like the question that Sonia posted, but it is about not one single solution that will solve the situation, but it's about building that ecosystem around that person as much as we would around a full-time employee. And the final point here I wanted to make is that, again, yes, there is a war on talent. It's also not a new phrase, so to speak. It's been around for years. So to me, what's also important is how do we build loyalty? How do we create such a culture and build an ecosystem around contingent workers that next time we've got a similar need for these particular skills, we can bring in potentially that same person onto a project, someone who already has organizational knowledge, someone who already knows the teams, and someone who, their speed to productivity will be very, very fast at that point.
Yes, right. So yeah, I see there are more questions here, but let's first go with the questions we've prepared, and we'll leave people to a bit more time so they can post their question, and we take the Q&A session at the end. So Alex, how do you think talent marketplaces will innovate after the post-COVID era?
Interesting question. Yeah, but let me take the phrase that Mary was saying, or that Sonia was mentioning, the war of talent, this expression. The other day, someone told me that the war of talent is over. Yeah, it's finished because talent won the war. Yeah. So talent is really now in control of the field. Yeah, they took control of it. And as what we definitely see is that this massive migration you mentioned, more and more people are moving, talent is moving to the freelance space. And when we ask them, why are they moving to be freelancers? The very first answer is because I'm able to choose my project. Yeah, and this is a very important point. And it's also reflecting very well where you will find the best talent. Yeah? So people that are deciding to leave a permanent job to be able to choose really what they like to do, what they are very good at doing. Yeah. So, and there we are in the middle of this. Again, let's use again this expression of war of talent. Yeah. So as a talent marketplace, I mean that you asked me how we're innovating. I mean that by definition we are an innovative player in the market of talent. 10 years ago there were no marketplaces for freelancers. This is something very new. In fact, our company was founded something like 5 years ago. Yeah, and what we are seeing is, it was also mentioned that the pandemic, the COVID, really is accelerating this innovation, and mainly because of one key reason is that companies are now used to work remote, with people remote. So once you accept that your employees are not sitting 8 hours in front of you in a desk, that they are doing the job they need to do somewhere else, I mean, then the transition to on-demand talent or freelance talent is definitely easier. So we are innovating very much now in facilitating international connections of talent and companies. Because once you remove the boundary of having to sit someone in a desk, you can then connect in a very agile way the best talent which is sitting, I don't know, in south of Spain with a company in the UK, or someone which is sitting in the UK with a company in the Emirates. Then in terms of pure innovation, what we are seeing right now, and this in our company, that we are more and more working in facilitating the onboarding of the talent into our clients. And for doing such, I mean, we recently launched what we call a freelance management system, which is going beyond doing the match of talent and projects or talent and companies, but ensuring that we are supporting our clients in all the onboarding, all the administration, all the paperwork, all the administrative tasks that are ensuring that there is a very easy going, smooth landing of our freelancers into our clients.
Okay, so shall we move to the Q&A session now? So let's see. We've already mentioned the war of talent. So we have another question: how to transition from a business development IT sales lead generation role to an IT recruitment role? Mary, do you want to answer this one?
Wow, great question. Thanks, Christine. So I'm just having a how to transition from a business development IT sales lead generation role to IT recruitment role. Great question. Well, first of all, I would do a bit of an audit of the current skills and capabilities that you hold being in that role and map them across to key skills and capabilities that a lead generation role, in an IT recruitment role, to just check how much overlap do you have. And that's a good exercise to start off with, to really understand your baseline, what skills and capabilities you already have that are transferable potentially into a new career path that you want to embark on. And also at the same time, I would look at the capabilities that are typically required from an IT recruitment role. You know, you can just go on, even on LinkedIn, and check out some and check out some job adverts and see basically where you have any capability gaps that you may need to work on. So that would be a good starting point. Then, of course, it also depends if you are in a particular company at the moment and that company offers particular career paths, then it may be an idea as well for you to look at that and speak to someone in the company that may be able to give you a steer. I hope that answers your question, Wasim.
Yeah, thank you, Mary. Okay, there's another one from Christoph. In which cases hiring a freelance is more cost efficient and time saving than actually hiring a full-time employee? Alex, do you want to answer this?
Yeah. I want to jump to answer it. Yeah, that's a very interesting question, and it's a typical question that we are very often answering our clients. Yeah, so that depends. I mean, that depends on especially on the length of the project. As we said, that freelancing makes or on-demand talent makes a lot of sense when clients are more oriented and organized toward projects, so it makes a lot of sense then to consider freelancing. I think that the freelance cost is what you see. It is not hidden cost. Is what you see is what you're going to have to pay at the end of each month. When you compare this very clear and transparent cost to what you are paying to an employee, you have holidays, you have sick leaves, you have training, you have company benefits, you have social security. So you have many hidden costs which are on top of what is the salary. But in terms also of the cost, when we think just about the recruiting cost, I mean, then there's a huge difference. What we are seeing with our clients is that we are serving positions that they have been looking for months, in some cases for more than 6 months. We are serving those positions in hours, 48 hours. So this is a huge cost. I mean, it is not a monetary cost, but a cost of not being able to deliver a project, not being able to do things. Yeah, compare months of recruitment for a permanent position with hours in terms of talent on demand, and also the cost of recruiting. If you are using a typical recruiting agency, I mean, recruiting a permanent position is going to cost you thousands of euros or dollars. In the case of talent marketplaces such as Outvise, it's going to cost you zero. And the cost of searching for someone in the platform is free. Yeah, I mean, typically the business model of talent platforms such as Outvise are based on success models. Yeah, so we mainly charge a service commission on top of what the client and the freelancer do agree. So altogether, recruiting costs are definitely not comparable. Nothing compared to quite expensive or months, and the cost of serving, if there are projects below 1 year, I mean, that makes a lot of sense to go for on-demand talent and not for permanent employees.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's an extension to that as well, if I may. So, or certainly more to the case with platforms like Outvise. So if you think about the traditional consultancy project or management consultancies, right, where you'll go and get these very specialist skill sets because you've got this piece of work to do. In the old world, all of the great talent was harbored in the McKinseys and Oliver Wymans of the world. Yeah. Today there are just as many people who have left McKinsey and Oliver Wyman than actually work inside those, and therefore you no longer, because of the way you can now access this talent in a more dynamic fashion, you can still have the same project delivered by the same caliber of professionals, but without a 70% professional margin on top of it. And that's again where I'm sure there's lots of projects being done as well, rather than just on the thinking about how do I staff a project. What are the business challenges you're facing, and okay, how would you have got that done otherwise? Often you may have just stuck a pin in it, or you may have gone and got PwC or a management consultancy to do it. But now actually this is a great way, as I think Alex mentioned, as one of the free use cases, is about bringing that specific expertise to deliver whatever the project is, and then just have them go away. And with 33,000 odd consultants, you can always get the one who knows exactly what it is that you need to look after, which I'm sure is very helpful.
Yeah, very good point, Daniel. Thank you. Yeah, that is right. I mean, I was comparing freelancers with permanent employees, but this is true that you can also compare freelancers with the typical, a typical alternative in the old world that was management consultant or consultancies. And in this case, again, freelancers are definitely a fraction of the cost of the typical consultancies. And more than this, I mean, I have not mentioned this previously, but most of the names you mentioned as consulting firms are also our clients. So they are also moving from the old world or having all their employee base, all the consultants as employees, to also leveraging on talent pools, on-demand talent pools such as us.
Yes, and may I just add, from personal experience, that's also a huge benefit to these big consulting firms potentially, because typically they have huge teams of resourcing teams, which is a huge overhead even for these, you know, very financially stable organizations, let's put it that way.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yes. Yeah, I think this connects very well with another question we have from Sophie. How do you actually measure the KPIs and performance of those freelancers? Mary, any suggestion here?
Can we take a look at the question again? Sorry, I was looking at other questions.
No problem. Yeah, because we've got questions in the Q&A, we've got questions in the chat. So from Sophie, how do you measure the KPIs and performance of the freelance workers?
Well, fantastic question, Sophie. Not that there is an easy answer to it, because again, it will depend on how you performance manage in your company. So if your company's performance management is built around OKRs, for example, then that will be quite simple, because the OKRs cascade from the top throughout the entire organization, and it will be quite it will be quite simple, considering to align very specific OKRs immediately as they are on board, and that would be one way for you to measure their performance throughout the contract.
Yeah,
I think that ties in quite nicely. It was to Abdullah's question as well, really, right? It's, you know, when does freelancing or the permanent job or project-based employment really become the stake of the future? And, you know, if you think about, again, what Alex was talking about earlier with remote working now, you know, you have no idea how many hours the person is really working, but it just becomes very much outcome based. And I think ultimately with gig or project-based workers, that sort of project-based or deliverable mentality has always been, you know, the root cause, because you know you're only going to use them for a finite amount of time or for a finite objective. So I think the earlier you can, you know, half the battle is in getting the right milestones set up in the project description, or knowing what you want to achieve from the outcome, and then just determining the performance based against those. And again, whether they can either be paid on a fixed milestone basis, or on a, you know, on a cap time and material basis, or whatever you feel is suitable to delivering that. But you know, I think the end KPI obviously is always the you know, whatever the deliverable was set out at the very beginning of the engagement. But it, you know, definitely shouldn't be hours at the desk, because otherwise the incentives are all misaligned from the get-go.
Absolutely, fully aligned. At the end, I mean, all freelancers, I mean, the freelancer workplace are most of the time related to project. They should be evaluated based on the outputs of this project, or the specific milestones of this project, and the ability of them to deliver those milestones. In any case, us as a platform, what we are doing is, at the end of each engagement, we are asking our clients to evaluate the performance of the freelancers. So we really understand how those guys have been delivering at the different projects or assignments they had at our clients.
I couldn't agree more. Myself, I am a change management and a program and portfolio management practitioner, and I see a great question here from Christoph, which I'd love us to touch on as well, how to build these long-term relationships. So just to what Daniel and Alex were saying, I think not only it's important to have that project management based mindset, but also I would like to encourage everyone to think about when is the right time to bring such a person on board, because again, we sometimes are in situations where we feel alertness and we feel pressure to bring in someone on board. But are we ready to bring this person on board? Do we know what is the output exactly that we expect of them? How we got these milestones mapped out? And we know in no case scenario, when you build a project plan at the start, it will look the same at the end. But if you do not have an idea, a solid idea of what output you expect and at what point, then I would ask myself the question of, are we ready to bring in these people on board right now?
Yeah, regarding this, what we are facing also this question many times from our clients. And somehow, because they're still thinking in the old model, I want a permanent employee, I'm not able to find it because I've been months looking for it unsuccessfully. So let me take an on-demand or a freelancer to fill the position or the skills for the time being. But they're still thinking about how may I move this guy from being a freelancer to be a permanent. And this is quite difficult sometimes because, I mean, at the end, those guys, again, I mean, the people we do have in the platform took the decision to leave the permanent position and become freelancers. And again, think about the first reason for that, the project. So the best way to have them on board for a long time is based on the project. So having an interesting project for them and ensuring that if they join the company, if they're having a good time as a freelancer in the company and they join the company, they will still have interesting projects in the future.
I know someone, as a funny anecdote, I know someone who has been a contractor for one company for 17 years.
Yeah, those things happen. Yeah, I mean, we have people working from project to project, jumping in the company for more than 2-3 years right now. Yeah.
Just don't tell the UK tax man.
The project is the key driver.
Sorry, Daniel?
I was just saying, don't tell the UK tax man.
UK, the IR 35. Yeah,
IR 35. Yeah, but no, I think I mean, I agree with everything you said, but there's also just the element of just common decency and communication with the freelancers, right? They know that they are part of your ad hoc talent requirements, but that doesn't mean that you can't stay in contact with them or have your HR team drop them or put them as part of the quarterly newsletter or other things, or invite them to, you know, quarterly drinks or something. I mean, it's about because there will come a time when there's your project or another project and you want them to choose your project, right? So it's already starting to build that sense of loyalty or enjoyment or community, even with this extended talent pool. And in the world of recruitment and HR and so forth, there's an ever-growing school of thought around what they call total talent management, which means not just your permanent employees, but your alumni, but your team on maternity leave, you know, the freelancers that you use, all of these people that you have various talent touch points with, and how do you continue to engage with them. But at the underlying heart of it all is just making sure that you first and foremost, you know, stay in touch with them. So working out whatever your comms plan is for those freelancers will or for those contingent workers, so they continue to remember who you are, is a good starting point.
Yes, definitely. Okay, there are a few more questions here from the audience. How to deal with search resource delivery in case of backout? So who wants to answer this one?
If the question means how do you fill the gap when if a freelancer was to go out, I think that, you know, there's obviously a couple of ones of having a platform where you've got a choice of 33,000, so you can quickly find an alternative solution is definitely a good, you know, a good resource to have in your back pocket. But equally, I think it's sort of follows on from Christoph's question that, you know, it's great to if you can get that employee onboarding experience right, or the contingent worker onboarding experience right, and or have that existing relationship with them, then you can minimize the event of that happening. And for you, that's always the the primary objective, right, is to build a place where people want to work. And you'll always get someone who backs out just because they're difficult, or something might have happened personally. But other than that, these are also professionals who largely trade on their reputation to come in and deliver projects. So you, as long as everything is as was promised leading up to the engagement, I would have thought you'd find that as a very minimal experience.
Fully aligned with what you're saying, Daniel. At the end, reputation is the main asset of freelance professionals. So what we have seen, I mean, when placing hundreds of those guys in our clients, is that their professional attitude has always been very, very good. In some cases, there is some mismatches because of whatever. And then as a platform and having established relations with our clients, we usually replace those guys in 48 hours.
Okay, and another one. Could you please give us an example of a situation where a company needed a screening tool to hire new employees? Well, I think this is definitely for you, Daniel.
Yeah.
So I'll try and answer this one. So there's lots of examples, Peter, where it's needed. If you think about the financial services industry, for example, you have to make sure that people are not international money launderers, that they have what is termed as fit and proper conduct behavior, and therefore there's a regulated and mandated need in order to do these checks. There is also a growing need from companies to also just want the statistics around why people or what people lie about is quite alarming. So on average in the UK, for example, 1 in 4 professionals will have misrepresented the facts on their application, and then 50% of those lies, for want of a better word, will be around where they've worked or what their titles were or the dates that they've worked and so forth. And then another 20% will be about whatever they've studied. So it's usually the academic side of things. So if you're hiring a PhD in computer science, there is a high percentage, or there is a percentage chance that actually he's only got a master's degree in computer science or data analytics. But in order to make sure he gets the job, because it's hyper competitive, people will give themselves a better grade or a better qualification, or completely make something up entirely. There was alarmingly an incident in Pakistan Airlines where they found over 100 pilots didn't have pilot licenses, right? And you can think you'd want to check that, right? So there are obviously certain industries and professions where it really does that. What Veremark is increasingly seeing, and it's a service that we offer, is that companies are ever more protective of their culture, as they should be. It's a key component of there, and therefore they want to avoid toxic behaviors or toxic character traits coming into the organization. And now they will do things like an adverse media check or a social media check to make sure that you haven't turned up in the papers for rioting or protesting in an aggressive fashion, or to make sure that you're not posting or liking sexist or misogynistic comments online, and therefore could be discriminatory to your female colleagues at the workplace. So there's all these various reasons for why people should do it, but predominantly it's either around regulatory necessity or really about hiring the best quality of people, because people will misrepresent the fact, or being hyper protective of the culture and making sure that you want to get the right people on the bus.
And how do you know if the information they provide is accurate? How do you check that?
So for everything that Verimark does is called primary source verification. So we will go back to the university, we will go back to the past employers, we will check obviously all of the criminal records. There are third-party tools that will scan all of the websites and then the social media sites and identify their social links and draw it all out and bring it to a result and so forth. And then in many cases, the candidate has the right to challenge it or understand what has been found out against them if it's a negative result. So they can say actually that that wasn't me, or provide the context of it. So it's not such a blind finding. But it's always by going back to the source. I mean, it's not about just taking, hey, someone's printed out this certificate, all of a sudden I've gone to Harvard. We would go and speak to the institution itself to confirm that at source.
Okay. And there's one more question.
Statistics, by the way, Daniel,
Sorry?
Fascinating statistics, how much representation there is in people's job applications.
Yeah, I mean, it is quite alarming, and it happens at all levels. And as I say, the majority are usually, they can be quite small things. It will be people who have just extend the time period that they've worked somewhere, because they don't want this gap in their CV because they left after 3 months and so forth. So all of a sudden they end up pretending to have worked there for 12 months or such. But again, the question is, does it really matter whether you work there 3 months or 12 months? The question is, why, as a person, why have you lied about it, right? And if you're willing to lie about the small things, then what would you do about the big things? And so from a cultural and integrity point of view, from your organization, that's what you're trying to minimize bringing into your own culture. But certainly, as I say, it's a very useful tool. And you'll know that the cost of a bad hire is in the tens of thousands of dollars, right? So I think it sort of relates to Sophie's question around how do you ensure the right match between a business and a candidate. And you can do this is just the very final part of that screening process, but I think a lot more of the more important stuff is obviously what in the interviewing process and the cultural matching that I'm sure you'd be able to from a talent acquisition perspective elaborate more on, Mary.
Anything you want to?
Final question from Christoph. I just wanted to quickly address that one because it's a theme that's been ongoing since we started today. So
sure.
Christoph is saying that his company works with a couple of freelancers at the moment, and they'd like to build a long-term relationship and continuity with them, but they're not sure how to do it. So what's our advice? So my advice is don't think about the type of contract that they have and treat them from the start as you would treat anyone who you'd be bringing into your company as a full-time employee. I do appreciate that there may be some legal limitations in which perhaps you cannot offer the same perks and benefits, but actually if you look again at some research, perks and benefits is actually showing consistently to be the least impactful part of employee value proposition that builds belonging, engagement, and retention of talent. And I can refer you to the latest research by Josh Bryce and company called The Healthy Organization, where you can find some of those statistics. So pre-board, on-board, and off-board, the same way that you would with any other employee in the company. Engage with them, invite them, as Daniel said, to your company drinks and things like that, and don't start with thinking about the type of contract that they're on.
Yeah, thank you for your advice, Mary. So I'm just conscious about the time, but there's one more question, so let's go over that one. In your view, what will be the biggest value of a recruiter in 15, 20, 50 years, generally in the future? Promoting marketplaces implies that talents and companies will have a direct access to each other, where recruiter role may be redundant. How do you see the evolution of recruitment in general?
That's a good one, yeah.
Yeah, who wants to start?
As we are
Where
very
do we
implied.
start?
We are very implied in the question. Yeah, I mean, then we are mentioning the place in the question. Yeah, marketplaces. Yeah, I mean, definitely. But in any case, this is also related to the previous question from Sophie. Yeah, how do you ensure the right match between a business and a candidate? In marketplaces, I mean, that we try to automate most of to digitize most of the processes. There is still some human touch. Yeah, so we do have recruiters, we do have people behind, we do have people that are still looking at candidates, that are still interviewing them if required. So first answer to Tinea's question will be that most of those guys will end up working in talent marketplaces. Yeah. And the second part of the question, or the answer, will be that I mean, marketplaces are not going to replace the whole industry of talent. They will be remaining part of people looking for very specific high-level C-suite type of professionals to join companies on a permanent basis. What is going to probably disappear is, again, all which is more related to a project-driven type of talent that will be managed in a more automatic way through platforms. But again, in this case, behind there will be talent people ensuring that there is a smooth, a smooth selection and all things are going well.
Yeah, I'm a little more pessimistic on the recruitment industry personally. I think masses, certainly, well, it depends on the horizon, but within 2 decades, I think the whole bottom end of the recruitment market will be incredibly automated, and gig, hourly shifts and connections to more commoditized skill sets, although like coffee shop workers, although coffee shop workers or warehouse workers and so forth, it's just going to be completely automated, 100%. As you say, the war for talent as opposed on talent will definitely become even starker, and then actually at the where you'll see a real shift is at the very much at the top end, where actually you'll see an inverse of the model, and you'll have almost like talent agents representing the very best talents, like a football player, who will then be brought into a stable of and then be marketed out. Again, these could be through marketplaces, but your super freelancers, if you will. But there's definitely going to be a shift in that. And then from a traditional agency point of view, I think you're going to see a massive growth because of the increasing level of candidate connectivity you have in the use of our recruitment process outsourcing and embedded talent. So I think the mid-market agency model is going to be massively disrupted and decimated, whilst the base level recruitment agency is just going to completely disappear or be taken over by tech.
Well, I will sandwich myself in between Alex and Daniel, and I will say I'm somewhere in between. But something to add here is that we are already seeing a massive shortage in talent acquisition, talent as well. So from a capability building perspective, I also see how anyone who already is in talent acquisition or would consider a career in talent acquisition also need to look at not just the capabilities and skills that were needed in the past for talent acquisition professionals, but those in the future. So even things like traditionally a talent acquisition specialist perhaps didn't have to think much about employee experience, but I would encourage everyone now to put that lens on their talent acquisition role as well.
And yeah, we have 5 more minutes, but I think this one is a very interesting question. How do you face current market situation with a deficit of tech profiles? Is there any advantage to work with talent marketplaces in this sense?
I think that what a way of illustrating what is happening in the market is thinking about a talent pool. We used to have a pool where all fishers were employees, and all those fishers are now jumping to a new pool, which is the freelancer pool. Yeah, so the old employee talent pool is drying up, and the other one is filling up. Yeah, so what we are telling our clients is that if you're we are still looking to fish your employees in the old pool, I mean, you're going to be unsuccessful. You need to move and also start looking in the new freelancer pool to find the right employees. And the more a specific skill or profile is looked for, I mean, it's searched for, I mean, the more probabilities you will have of those fishes jumping to the freelance pool. Very clear example that we always bring to the table is data scientists. It's so difficult to find now today a permanent employee, a data scientist as a permanent employee. Most of them and all the good ones have jumped in the freelance space, and same thing for the IT. So if you are looking for IT profiles, and you need to start searching in both pools, the permanent one and the freelancer one, to be successful.
Okay, so I'm sure we could be discussing and answering questions all afternoon, but yeah, I think our session is coming to an end now, and it was definitely a great one. Thank you, Daniel, Mary, and Alex, for your time. Many thank you for everyone attending. Please just wait 1 more minute until we close the session, as we have prepared a short survey with 5 questions that will appear now on your screen. So thank you very much.
Thanks,
Bye.
Patricia. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks all for the questions.
Thanks all.
Yes. Thank you so much.
Bye.